Yep. Ding, ding, let's go. So, the concept of Healinguistics, right? I love making words. We'll talk about that more soon. Just the fact that words can heal. Concepts, quotes, placed in the right way at the right time in your life path, life story. The fact that we are getting all of this information through the senses, and some of it lands, some of it doesn't, some of it's really impactful, some of it isn't. But I don't know about you, but when it comes to people, whether it be in person or online, when it comes to a particular set of words in juxtaposition together, right? Yeah, it's a sentence, but breaking it down, it's just, well, let's break it down all the way for fun, and then get right back into it, and then have an impactful explosion. So, what are sentences? Words that are put together in a certain sequence that provide a certain meaning. It can be as subjective as the willingness and the interpretation is for the reader or the listener. And then we break it down into words. What are words? Well, they're a collection of letters which provide certain sounds. And it's interesting how you can break down the letters and their sounds, and they each have their own individual sound, but then once you put them together, especially in English, you could just have a completely different sound, collection of sounds, as a result of putting the certain letters together, right? So, one of the words that just popped into my head, thinking of an example, was the word heinous. Instead of or right? If we put all those together, it doesn't sound like heinous, right? But certain letters that go together, they make the word, and then the word in juxtaposition with other words make the sentence, make the meaning, make the paragraph perhaps, make the book perhaps, right? So we're stacking, but let's continue the breakdown and then explode outward. Okay, so we're going inward first. So yes, we have the words, but beneath that, or zoomed in, we have the letters. Okay, what are the letters? Well, each letter has a shape, each letter has a sound, and these shapes and these sounds give it each letter's meaning. I'll just speak for English. So we have 26 letters. Each have their own sound, but each has, or there are certain ones, vowels essentially, that could have 3 different sounds, sometimes 4 different sounds per letter. So really interesting how that works. And okay, so we have the sounds, the different sounds, but then look at the letter. Look at the letter itself. Like, what is it? Oh, what do you mean? It's a letter. It's an H. It's an A. It's a Q. Like, they're letters. What? What are you trying to say? Well, what are they? They're hieroglyphs. They're squiggles, glorified squiggles, that we are allowing the meaning to seep in, right? And that goes with words, that goes with sentences, and once we're at words and sentences, we're talking about the subtle sort of interpretation aspect, the subjectivity of it. But it's really interesting how when we're zoomed in and we're talking about letters, they're squiggles, they're hieroglyphs, they're symbols that we are essentially, as a collective, if you're using the same letters as the English 26 letters. Don't even get me started on the symbols and the characters and yada yada. All right, we're just talking about letters. How each is essentially a squiggle, an agreed upon squiggle, okay? Just to make it silly and meaningful. Okay, so we've got these squiggles that we're saying at certain times, right? Because they can have different sounds. At certain times you're this sound, and at another time you're this sound, okay? And we can put them together. These make words. It's like, whoa. And then the words can have a programming basis in our mind, in our psyche overall. And then those words can come together, make the sentences. And then the sentences or the phrases can have a certain programming within us, within our psyches. And yes, it's like you already know this. But I'm talking about this because the more we, just like us meditating on our inner self, it's like the more that we look at something, the more that we observe something, the more that we are kind of viewing and being around something from multiple angles over a period of time, we're getting a better understanding. We're getting a more complete map of whatever it is, whether it be us doing the internals, the meditation, contemplation, prayer through vocalization or internals, whatever it is, whether it be the internal stuff or the external stuff, like us discussing linguistics, words, meanings, and the building blocks. The fact that this is an aspect of our lives, and it's so easy to gloss over because, hey, here we are. We're using words. We're using sentences, phrases, relaying quotes that are impactful. And I'm just getting us to steep in this aspect of reality. And it's like, whoa, you're right. These are just squiggles and sounds. And then we're doing the interpretation, the meaning, the significance. This programming is going on, right? Imagine a pre-verbal era, the more primitive caveman era, where it was sounds, right? You would still be communicating through sounds, but like words, letters, nah, just right? And body gestures as well. So and just the fact that, and if you've watched any of my other videos, I love this zooming in, zooming out in our perception concept, because, and this is a very subtle thing that I do, yet I do my best to put it in words, right? I'm doing my best to put concepts of the most internal, the most metaphysical, the most subtle, very real things. This isn't woo-woo. These are very real human things that are subtle, that I'm bringing forth and translating them into linguistics. And my aim is for, yes, healing, right? It's like this love and this care is not just like woo-woo sappy nonsense. It's, imagine the concept. Well, it's, yes, imagine, but it's a very real thing that does happen, that if a newborn baby isn't held somewhat often, somewhat frequently, then they pass away. And it's this concept, and it's this need for a connection. And at this point, however old you are, we're not going to literally just plop over because we're not connecting with people or connecting with ourselves, for that matter. And that's the topic to further soon. But yeah, we're not just gonna like keel over, if we're not getting this connection frequently. But because we're understanding more and more, and maybe we're just in the point of we've got things settled, like we've got our survival needs like settled, cool. And the lack of connection thing isn't just gonna make us pass away like quickly, but it really is a sort of slow kind of disintegrating process where if we're not making the self-connection, the self-care connection, right? I'm not even talking about being social, having, friends, family, people that you care about. And, if you're, like really like solo in the sense of, being dozens and dozens of miles like away from anybody, because that's just where you live. Nature is a connection as well. But back to the topic at hand, which is the healinguistics, the care, the healing that goes on as a result of using language, using words, sentences. That is what I'm all about, one of the many things I'm all about. That's what this content is all about, where I'm not going to do the healing for you, per se, but I'm giving these healinguistics to give guidance, reminders, just help along the way, just boosts, encouragements, things like that. And then, for one-on-one soul training, you can message me, because this is my entire life, essentially, where I go to work with the school children, I do soul training with myself and with them. And then when I get home, if I'm hanging out with friends, family, relationships, whatever category, soul training. Like I'm having that as the intention the whole time. Soul training, soul training. This is life. I'm living life. Life is living me. There's a mutuality about it. There's a synergy about it. But what's it really doing? Well, it's, with a sprinkle of optimism, it's the realization that everything is helping you. Everything is helping me. Everything is helping us. You may not find that as true, but the more you live the life of intending, wanting to just live a better life at the core level, at the heart and soul level, then this realization kind of just happens. It just happens, where you're just like, well, even though that was a BS situation, even though that was a really uncomfortable situation, even though that was really challenging and detrimental and upheaving at the time, devastating at the time, right? To devastate, where it's just like, you know, you have this vastness and you think you've got it all figured out, and then it's devastating, like devastating situation, and you're like, well, I thought I knew what was going on, and now I don't have any idea what was going on, because the ground that I was operating on has since crumbled, earthquaking beneath me. Nothing seems settled for now, right? The earth has quaked, the earth has quoke for now, and I am unsettled for now. Well, you live life. It happens. You don't have to blame anyone or anything. If we feel like we could have done something better, we could say, okay, mentally, emotionally, neutrally. Okay, fair enough. It is what it is. And then, as life moves on, as life lives on, we can look in retrospect, whether it be a day, a couple weeks, a couple months, we can look at a past situation in retrospect and say, you know, that actually reoriented me, and it kind of shifted my direction. So I'm actually in a better place. So that devastation, temporary devastation, that actually helped me. Huh. Cool. So we'll wrap this up, and it's the Healinguistics of us living life. We have this tool of language. I have seen myself in the past using it to sway things that are less than wholesome, and I've also seen it as using it or not using it when I coulda, woulda, shoulda. And that's been a theme of my life, which is becoming less and less of a theme because there's more and more healing involved. But this concept of not speaking up when needed, or speaking up in a way or in a capacity that is detrimental to self or to others, right? So, I have, and am currently and will be continuing to take a vow to use the linguistics, the wording, the words, the phrases, the sentences, the gift of speech, of communication. Vow to use it for healing. So that's Healinguistics for you. And the fact that I'm like giving, I'm offering this healing, and you get to choose what you want to do with it. Right? It's like, here's some medicine. Here is some tincture, some potion, some spell. And it's up to you to get, to use it, and in what capacity. And it goes in with your intention in thinking and feeling out, well, what do I really want? And the question of like, who am I? That can be answered in simplicity, in a sense, by saying, okay, so if I'm a soul with all these layers, mind, emotion, heart, intuition, body, and my surroundings, I get to ask myself, and I get to refine over time, to distill and perfect over time, what do I truly, right, on a heart and soul level, truly want and need? And for someone like me, the more and more I've asked that and listened to my heart and soul, my core, the answer has just been, look, just do your best to cultivate the soul, to train the soul, to clarify and expand the soul, and to discuss it with others. Give the healinguistics to others. And then they are given the invitation to take it and run with it and do whatever they want with it. Right? Beyond that, it's not my job. But my job, I feel like, the more and more soul training that I do, in everything that I do, that's the call. And I'm answering the call. Boom. All right. Much respect to you. Much respect to me. Much respect to life and our willingness and ability to make the best things happen for ourselves at the heart and soul and core level and beyond. This is Mac 11. Catch you later.